Hello, welcome to the Case Closed podcast. I'm your host, Ava, and today we will be looking into the case of the Idaho Student Murders. This case shook the nation in November 2022, when 4 University of Idaho students were found stabbed to death in their off-campus residence. Let's get into the details of this case. This case begins on November 13th, 2022. When police received a call for an unconscious individual at 1122 King Road. This home belonged to 4 University of Idaho students. At the home, police found all 4 students: Ethan Chapin, age 20, Xana Kernodle, age 20, Madison Mogan, age 21, and Kaylee Goncalves, age 21. All 4 students appeared to be stabbed to death, and based on the evidence, the attack was extremely violent. All 4 of the victims had very different backgrounds. Ethan Chapin was a junior majoring in recreation, sport, and tourism management. Xana Kernodle was a junior majoring in marketing. Madison Mogan was a senior majoring in marketing, and Kaylee Goncalves was a senior majoring in general studies. The crime scene was brutal and contained signs of violent struggle. The investigators found evidence of forced entry into the home, but it was unclear whether the killer entered through a door or window. Although the investigation is ongoing, police believe the suspect targeted these specific residents. The community was shocked by this case, and the university provided counseling services and support to students and faculty affected by the tragic murders of these students and classmates. As we look into this case, we will be looking into not just the evidence of the case itself, but the effects that this tragedy had on this community. Penn State University, with connections to the murders. Kahnberger, cell phone data, and DNA evidence linked him to the crime scene during the window of time where the 4 University of Idaho students were killed. Kahnberger's background and motives are still unclear, and he has previously attended DeSales University in Pennsylvania, where he earned a degree in psychology. He was a teaching assistant at Washington State University, where he was pursuing his PhD in criminology. The investigation revealed that Kahnberger's had been in the vicinity of the crime scene on several occasions prior to the murders. Additionally, DNA evidence found on a knife sheath at the scene matched Kahnberger's DNA. Police believe that Kahnberger acted alone, but the investigation is ongoing. Kahnberger's lawyers have stated that he was driving around the area the night of the murders. Despite this, no alibi has been released. The police worked tirelessly to gather evidence and build a case against Kahnberger in efforts to bring some type of justice to these victims' families. The prosecution's case against Brian Kahnberger relies heavily on DNA evidence, cell phone data, and eyewitness accounts. Let's look more closely into the details of this evidence. DNA evidence was very important in this case. A knife sheath found at the crime scene contained DNA matching Kahnberger's DNA. According to reports, the DNA match was made through a genealogy database. Cell phone data was also a significant part in this case. Kahnberger's cell phone was tracked to the area of the crime scene on the night of the murders. In addition to this evidence, his phone was turned off around the time of the murders, which investigators believe may have been an attempt to avoid being detected at this location. Eyewitness accounts also played an important role in this investigation. One witness reported seeing a white sedan in the area around the time of the murders, which matched the description of Kahnberger's car. Kahlberger faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. The prosecution alleges that Kahlberger intentionally and premeditatedly killed the 4 students attending the University of Ohio. The prosecution's case also includes other evidence such as video footage and forensic analysis. Authorities argue in this case that Kahlberger's actions were calculated and deliberate, and that he showed no regard for human life. The defense, on the other hand, has indicated that they may pursue an alibi defense. They claim that Kahlberger was driving around the area on the night of the murders, but there has been no clear alibi provided. As the trial approaches, many questions remain unanswered. Will the defense be able to raise reasonable doubt? And will Kahlberger and his defense release an alibi? The evidence and charges in this case rely heavily on modern technology. The prosecution has a high burden of proof, and in order to win this case, they need to demonstrate that Kahlberger is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense, on the other hand, is attempting to prove Kahlberger's innocence. Ultimately, the outcome of the trial will depend on the strength of the evidence and the arguments provided on both sides. The university provided counseling and support to students and families affected by the tragedy. Many students expressed feelings of sadness, fear, and anxiety, which is all understandable due to the circumstances and the unknown motive of the killings. The community came together to support the families of the victims and to mourn the loss of the students. Vigils and memorial services were held for the victims. The case raised questions about the safety and security on campus. Many wondered if the university was doing enough to protect its students. The university administration responded by adding additional security measures, including more security cameras and increasing the police presence on campus. However, some students and faculty felt that more needed to be done. They called for increased communication from the university administration, as well as transparency on issues, and for more support on services for students. The case also had a broader impact on the community. Local businesses reported a decline in sales, and many residents expressed fear and anxiety about their safety. The investigation and arrest of Brian Kahlberger brought a sense of closure to the community, but the public still had questions. Why did Kahlberger commit such a violent crime? What was his motive, and what could have been done to prevent it? The case highlighted the importance of prioritizing safety and security while also acknowledging the need for communities to come together in trying times instead of pulling apart. The impact of the Idaho student murders will be felt for years to come. It is a reminder of not only the importance of safety, but the importance of community and support. The investigation into the Idaho student murders was complex and challenging. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, there were several obstacles. One of the biggest challenges was the lack of forced entry or exit at the crime scene. This made it difficult for investigators to understand how the suspect gained access to the residence. Another challenge was the large number of tips and leads that came in after the murders. The police received thousands of tips, which had to be carefully reviewed and investigated. This was a time-consuming process, and despite this, it was necessary to ensure the police were as thorough as possible. The investigation also faced challenges related to the collection and analysis of evidence. The crime scene was processed for DNA, fingerprints, and other physical evidence, which was time-consuming and difficult, along with the leads and tips coming in. Additionally, the police had to navigate the issue of the cell phone data and the social media activity. The police had to obtain warrants to access the victims' and suspects' phone records and social media accounts. One of the key takeaways from this investigation is the importance of careful evidence collection and analysis. The police had to process the crime scene, analyze the evidence, and build a strong case against the suspect. The investigation also demonstrates the importance of collaboration between law enforcement agencies, such as the Moscow Police Department, and how closely they worked with the FBI as well as other agencies to gather evidence and build a case against Kohlberger. Overall, the investigation into the Idaho student murders was a challenging process. Despite the obstacles, the police were able to gather evidence and build a strong case against their suspect. As the case against Brian Kohlberger continues to unfold, there have been several developments shedding more light onto the investigation and the potential trial. One of the most significant updates in this case is that Kohlberger's defense team may pursue an alibi defense. This means that Kohlberger and his defense team will attempt to prove that Kohlberger was not at the crime scene at the time of the murders. Another development is the prosecution's decision to seek the death penalty. If Kohlberger is convicted, the prosecution will argue that he should be sentenced to death due to the circumstances of the crime. This case also contains a large amount of digital evidence. The prosecution has collected a vast amount of data from Kohlberger's phone, computer, and social media accounts, which they claim will help prove he is guilty of the crimes. As the trial approaches, both sides will continue to prepare their cases. The prosecution will work to build a strong case against Kohlberger, while the defense will be preparing an alibi for him. Some of the potential witnesses that may be called to testify include the surviving roommates of the victims, friends and acquaintances of Kohlberger and the victims, digital forensic experts who analyzed Kohlberger's devices, and the crime scene investigators who analyzed the crime scene on the residence. The trial is expected to be lengthy and complex, with both sides presenting extensive evidence and testimony. As the case continues to unfold, we will be able to see the ultimate sentence, if any, and what Kohlberger will be sentenced to. This case is extremely complex, and it will be closely watched by many in the upcoming months. The Idaho Student Murders case is one with many twists and turns. As we've explored in this podcast, the investigation was a challenging and meticulous process, with law enforcement working tirelessly to gather evidence and build their case. The case highlights the importance of community and the impact that crime can have on families and loved ones. The victims, Ethan Chapin, Zana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves, were all bright young adults, and their loss has been deeply felt throughout the community. As the case continues to unfold, many questions remain unanswered. What was Kohlberger's motive for the murders, and what will be the ultimate outcome of the upcoming trial? Despite many unanswered questions, one thing is clear. The Idaho student's murder case is a tragic reminder of the importance of community and safety. The victims' families and loved ones deserve answers, and the community deserves to feel safe and secure in their homes. As we wrap up this podcast, we want to acknowledge the bravery and resilience of the victims' families and loved ones, their strength in the face of tragedy, and we honor their memories by seeking justice and accountability. As the case continues, thank you for listening to today's episode of Case Closed. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please reach out to a crisis hotline or seek professional help. Make sure to tune in next Wednesday for another true crime case. And as always, all of the sources that have been referenced in this episode will be linked down below.